A warm welcome to everybody who's here today and also those of you who are following this stream. My name is Sofia Suomalainen. I am the student member of the Uniarts board and also an art management student. And today I'll be hosting this event. Due to the exceptional situation here at the Music Center, there are only the actual collegium members and the board members present here, and also our top candidates who are sitting here. Other community can follow this via stream or with an English interpretation on Sibelius Academy's YouTube channel. And then it's time to introduce our top candidates. In the last phase of this application round, there are 3 candidates, and I introduce them in an alphabetical order. Dean of Uniarts Sibelius Academy, Karlo Hildén, Satu Miettinen from the University of Lapland, and Paula Tuovinen from Arts Promotion Center, Finland. Welcome. You could send questions to the applicants with an online application form beforehand, and also the members of the collegium sent us questions via form because due to the corona we cannot send the mic around. And we got more than 80 questions. At the moment we have more than 100 excellent questions from the community, and unfortunately we cannot answer all of them during this event, but we'll answer as many as possible. And all questions that we selected from the community, or actually what they send us, will also be sent to the board for the board to take into account when they select the rector. And next up, the chair of board, Heikki Lehtonen, will recap the application criteria and the process of the selection. And then Heikki and a member of the Uniarts board, Maria Makarov, will ask some questions on behalf of the board. And after that, we'll ask the joint questions from the community. Yes, welcome. Now the mic is on. Welcome on my behalf as well. And I'll just shortly tell you what happened before this, when these 3 top candidates were selected here. So the application started in March, and in accordance to the Universities Act, the rector's duty is fixed term for a 5-year term at a time. So now we're selecting the 3rd rector in the history of Uniarts Helsinki for the term of 2020 to 25. The recruitment board includes, the recruitment committee includes the board of Uniarts Helsinki, and I can say at this point there's been so many faces, and we've been especially happy in the board that the rector's duty was so interesting to people. There was extensive interest in it, and we've had an excellent selection of applicants, which of course makes it difficult for us to choose from, because if there had been one candidate what is better than others, it would have been easier, but now that we have many, it's difficult to choose from them. But we are in long run in that process now. The recruitment committee has appointed the most key selection criteria for the selection is understanding of the arts and ability to steer the university in accordance with the strategy and having a strong management experience. And this is, of course, an important part of the recruitment process, and we wanted to hear the university community. We wanted to hear the questions, what Sofia mentioned, and there have been so many of them, which of course tells us what kind of things interest our community members. In that sense, these questions play a very important role in the final decision, so that is why the board is here. All board members are following this, because the answers to these questions will affect our final decision. The goal is that the new rector is selected Tuesday next week when we have a meeting, and personally myself have set the goal that we would have a unison decision, and I already know now that we have differences in what we emphasize, and that will lead to a discussion in the board meeting, and I hope that as a board we will be able to have all in favor of one applicant, so we wouldn't have to vote, but we'll see whether that will happen or not. then we'll start this actual interview, or we'll start with an introduction round actually. So firstly, I'm asking you to introduce yourself, your background in relation to the rector's duty. You have max 5 minutes, and let's start in alphabetical order. Carlo, please. Thank you. It's nice to be here around people and put up something nicer on. I was thinking about in my own opening speech to reminiscent the past a bit. I wrote down some memories and things I understood along the way. Let's get back to 2018. No, actually not. Well, actually, in 1989, when I was 19-years old, and I started studying musical education at SIBA, and I ended up being a student union active in many different administrative boards, and of course I followed up the management and I followed the rector closely as well. The university community seems very contradictory, very difficult to manage, with many different active actions and cultures and internal contradictions, a stage for all of them, which created a set that it was difficult to actually truly manage it. Despite of all this, the rector's duty had loads of expectations and vigorous critique, which led to a wrong view that I had, that I still actually remember at the moment, that please be careful to never become a rector. And it actually might wonder you, like, why am I here now? But I'll get back to that later. After my BA studies, I needed new challenges, music-wise and intelligence-wise. I started to study music theory and composing, and I wanted to be a researcher, a teacher, a musician. But soon enough, I got a lecturer's duty at the Conservatory of Helsinki, and I was also an hourly paid lecturer at SIBA, and my career was set in the background. It didn't seem like a strong alternative. I just started studying, which gave me so much, and it was just so challenging. Each student had a different background, different interests, different strengths, different needs, and I really had to, on a practical level, like I got to learn what I had read in books. It was like Do It and others, it was Vygotsky, all of that in my back pocket. But what did that mean in practice? Like student-based learning method, what did that mean? That's what I learned then. As I had got to the importance of learning and how it challenged some of the institutional and instructional conventions, my interest started to gradually shift from the content to be taught to developing institutions and learning environments. All the numerous aspects that influence the students' learning and what they become as professionals, artists, members of society, and human beings. What could be more important, I thought? So, when they opened up the possibility in 2002 to start as head of department in music in the newly established Helsinki University of Applied Sciences, I had the possibility to put this in practice. And one of the things I remember that I learned was actually leading is quite similar to teaching. What others learn, how they develop, is what counts, not what you do as or who you are as a leader or teacher. And other lesson from this period was importance of understanding the system within you are working. Why does this organization exist in the first place? What societal needs should we meet? And what should be our role in society and within this specific area? And in order to answer these specific questions, I developed an international network, and and found that that was incredibly helpful in finding the right profile and program in a wider international context. No man is an island in its health. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main, a part of the poem published in 1660s by John Donne, which I think tells the same story. And the same goes for institutions. You have to be aware of the context in which you operate and develop some of your focus rather than only focusing on the institution. After 7 years of being the leader of training, I decided to extend my idea and understanding and how the society actually works. I got the opportunity to work as the cultural management program director of Hanasaari Swedish Finnish Cultural Center. We got some theater turns, we got politics debates, we had got to do loads of cooperation between ministries in Finland and in Sweden. You are almost running out of time. Perhaps for the last minute, I'm going to use by answering what might cause some interest in you. So why am I here now? The answer is of course related to the taking responsibility of difficult and uninteresting matters has become interesting. It's not possible in this strange, very demanding situation to avoid the strong things. You just think that someone else will take care of it and just take care of things that interest you. And the other reason is that with my management experience, I realized that it's possible to develop the organizations, it's possible to develop the organizational culture, and the university doesn't have to be what I described in the beginning. And the last reason, of course, is my respect for this community, which has shown its abilities this spring to be part of this. Thank you. And then Satu. Estimated Uniarts Board, Uniarts Collegium, university community, and everybody who's listening. At the moment, I am the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Design at the University of Lapland. There are 2 professorships in my background. I've been the professor in service design and now in research group. And I also get a doctorship from the Denmark to be an artist research. I'm an active artist, especially socially engaged art. I work in the field of art and photography. I'm also part of the committee of art promotion center. I have a long background as an artist. I've worked in Namibia, Southern Africa, in Australia. I've been the visiting professor at the top university of Stanford, in Dange in China, in Trenton University in Italy, and I also teach in the Chile Catholic University. I've managed to get funding in international research field. I've applied for a lot of funding for artistic and art-based research. So I've managed really well in getting the supplementary funding. I have a long history in art and science universities and managing a university community in different management duties. I've been in the university board as a member, in collegium as a member, I've been a vice dean, then dean. I've also managed a research group and international research consortiums. In Uniarts, as Uniarts rectors, I would especially like to have an effect on art and artistic thinking and art pedagogy's role and significance in society and as a force that renews the society. And an important thing to me is also to strengthen Uniarts' role in the core of Finnish art. Art values and freedom are very important to me. Like the University of the Arts regulations also stated, rector's duties can affect the structural development of art fields and cooperation nationally and internationally. One of the most important motivations to me is, of course, in addition to all national and domestic funding, to steer it and lobbying it for art, or like art teaching, art research, and all that. This is, of course, especially important goal to me. The Uniarts Helsinki, it already is a significant Nordic, European, and global university. With my acts, I want to further this. This happens, of course, by supporting the existing networks, worldwide networks and partnerships, research cooperation, links, artistic research cooperation. The number one goal are the economical resources and securing them. And I can say that the fight in the future will be tighter for this. And as a rector, I see that this is one of my central roles and duties. To me, it's especially important to work in cooperation with different peer groups and entrepreneurs and companies, because they will give us resources as well. It's very easy for me to share this value base, openness, skill and courage, which are mentioned in the Uniarts strategy. I have a long history myself to develop things together, where it's important to hear openly what others say, what community says. This strengthens how we work together and how well we are doing together, the well-being of the community. These give us a lot of things to commit, to develop and motivate one another. Strengthening diverse research and internationalization are very important to me personally, and I believe that bold openings are always part of the art community and making art. Discrimination-free community is more important at the moment than never before. I'm sure all of us have experienced that lately. Satu, now you're running out of time. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Then Paula, please. Yes, good afternoon, everybody, on my behalf as well. I thought I would talk to you about three things shortly: education, research, and values. But firstly, I introduce myself. So I am Paula Tuovinen. At the moment, I work as the manager of Arts Promotion Center Finland. Before that, I've been a dancer almost all of my life. And of course, I've also been a choreographer and teacher, because as being a teacher, I've been able to support myself. For the past 15 years, I've been in management duties in the university mostly, and I acquired myself a new profession. So I am a manager, a leader by profession. But still, because being a dancer is close to my heart, I have aimed to do a little bit of dancing along the way, of artist work as well, aside in management, because otherwise I won't understand why I am doing the managing. What am I doing it for? I want to point out the vision sentence that art makes the future. It's been opened up really well in the strategy, and I can open up all of it, that art creates the future. That there's nothing there that I would disagree. But what do I mean with art creates the future? How do I understand it? Well, I see that because when the students graduate Uniarts Helsinki, they become artists. They will swim into the society, and their duty is more and more to find new ways to function in the society in different positions, which of course does not mean that the traditional work of a free artist, it's not in the core, but it's possible to create new kind of professionals, new kind of positions, it's extremely important because getting your income as an artist is extremely difficult. It's a big stone on my heart at the moment because I've seen so many graduates, Uniarts graduates, later changing their career, and that's why it's changing their field, and that's why it's very important that we have such education that the students are able to get their income from it in such a way that the students find their own paths, and we have to enable that. So through this, we have an effect in the society. So another thing is, another possible profession is being a researcher. How art creates the future is that art and science are in a symbiosis together more than before, because that's where it started from. But art and artists and researchers' cooperation is extremely important, and Uniarts Helsinki is to find high quality partners internationally and domestically so that we can find new study paths and then values. I only want to bring up one at this point, so skill. So the whole Uniarts function is based on us rather than many of the other universities. So our whole skill, our training and teaching is based on skill. We practice. And it's extremely important that in our training we make sure that our brain stays plastic, so that when we do something, when we do one move, we repeat something the whole time. There's the whole time the possibility that you take a slightly different route, because only through that route come such brain that it's possible for you to become creative and take that creativity out into the society. And this skill is also in the whole Uniarts community. We all share it. It's our joint thing because it's related to learning organization. The whole university has to be a learning organization. We have to think about whether we're doing it this way or can we do it another way. So the constant learning cycle, that is also part of the quality work, what I've had that has been important for me. So it's clear that we have clear process, the management is clear, that the students know what they get from the training. So basically, this was perhaps my introduction. Thank you, Paula. Now I would like Maria Makarov here from the board with me to ask a few questions that the board has prepared beforehand, and then we will get to the actual audience questions. Thank you, Maria. Thank you. Good afternoon, candidates, the audience. First question. University's values are skill, courage, and openness. How are they visible in a concrete matter in what you do as a rector? Karla, please. Courage, on the other hand, is that you face the things that are difficult. That, for example, in my introduction, I mentioned that. But it's also, what is courage is also to recognize what you don't know yet, or what you don't understand yet. Openness means that you function in a certain way, in an open way, in an understandable way. You don't hide things. And a skill, of course, is a transparent act, what Paula described just now, that value to the work, to the learning process, to development, what all community members here are doing in our work, so respecting that in everything as the starting point. Now I described more the values than what that means in a practical level. So if I still have time for that, yes. It means that you work as a manager, as a leader, with understandable principles in accordance to them in every situation, in a foreseeable way. That creates openness. Courage is, to me, is visible in situations where you have to face such feelings and ideas and phenomena that are strange to you. It's being humble as well and being sensitive. An ability to, in an interactive situation, to manage in a way that structures you and doesn't break you. Thank you. What about Satu? Courage is courage to accept new challenges. Courage can also be courage in a concrete matter to make new openness, opening things as a manager. What do you open? What kind of things you decide on? Skill is especially interesting and important. I see it in two ways: on your own skill to and your way to develop as a manager, to learn new things as a manager, to learn from other people and their interaction. But skill is also, in that sense, especially important because at Uniarts Helsinki there's a huge amount of skills and expertise. So a skillful manager uses this expertise and allows people to help them. I think that is a huge strength when you openly can give all skill flourish here and take Uniart further. Openness, transparency, equality, perhaps there are more values here listed, but openness is number one thing in that sense that we see that things are done together in a transparent way and equally. So in that way, we execute functioning together, developing together, resolving things together, taking things further. That goal is filled there. These are all related to one another. Skill and openness together and courage form a really nice combination to management. Thank you. And Paula? Yes, we could also have a bodily metaphor here about openness so that I can stand here behind my words, behind what I say, and that I am clear in what I say, that if and how we do it in practice about being open. So I'm not sure some of you know it, but you have to be able to immediately, when you get a vision or idea, or in a community there's an idea, that you're able to talk about it openly without hiding it. Of course, certain processes call for preparations, but you have to have the guts to bring things forth. And in managing, having courage means that you have to make unfortunate decisions as well, because you can't always please everybody. And that's something that each manager has to experience. But these, like what you said really well here just now, so basically these three values are related to each other strongly in some way. But openness means those clear processes, transparent processes that have been described, that they're visualized or they're visible somehow, that everybody can understand, for example, how decision-making process is like. Next up, the question to all of you is, so what do you see are central in the Uniarts strategy and how would you execute them? And now, Satu, please. Central in the strategy, you had amazing goals there, amazing aims. Some of the aims was related to furthering research, artistic research. One of the big aims was the aim of forming a capital area universities and universities of applied sciences, and Uniarts Helsinki, this international innovation center. And I see that this kind of innovation furthering within art contents, within art research, like taking artistic research to the core of something new, is central in the strategy. The other thing, the main line there is arts force as something that forms the society, comes up in many different parts in the strategy. How art is what formulates the society and renews it. I think that this is my own history and my own background. It has been always there, and this exactly what the resources and securing resources for this is for. So art in all its forms, theatre, dance, visual arts, everything every fields that are close to this are able to be in the core of societal act and to bring it volume, strength and credibility that formulates our everyday actions. Thank you, Satu. And then Paula, please. Yes, I want to bring up development of research. So Uniarts can be a world-level university in research as well, or actually it has amazing opportunities to be the best in it in the world, because universities like Uniarts Helsinki aren't too many. So that is why I would focus on Uniarts research would be profiled. There are now these 3 good research centers, but we're still some journey away from like being in the world map, like being out there in cooperation with the best international universities. And by acquiring funding now, for example, with the new Horizon Europe program, that in some of those clusters, like in all of them, has some parts where you could get external funding for. So I think this is one top aim that we should further. Thank you, Paula. Carlo, please. I start with how Uniarts is to find its way, its place in the extensive field of art and research where we function. We need to find our place in such a way that people want to play with us and act with us and develop things. We are very well known that we are open, we have courage and we are skillful, like our values say it. The other thing, and of course in a cityscape, in a city environment, of course, like to be tighter there. And another thing is like this area of research where I feel like the researcher's career would be attractive to the students and the researchers, that we are able to strengthen our activities and at the same way connect to such societal questions that raise art and artistic research significance in our time. Thirdly, I would like to bring up this extensive artists and experts training, like where our students become highly skilled and broad-minded artists and change makers. What are they going to be responsible for? What are their opportunities in the future as artists and professionals? How do we help them find their way in a world that changes quickly? Thank you. Next question, Maria, please. How would you increase the university's external funding, and especially research funding and foundation funding? Paula, please. Yes, I'm going to continue with what I just said. So Uniarts should also focus on having an effect when these funding instruments in the EU are created, so that they're more applicable for Uniarts as well. So we ought to be active in that as well. But yes, all of the external funding calls for us doing a lot more so that we would play as a team and have more cooperation with other universities, so that we are able to get the research funding applications as heavy and great as possible. And of course, the essential thing here is that we have to be able to have such connections with the ministry that they understand us and they understand the Uniarts vision, because that is the biggest funding instrument, the governmental funding, of course. And then, of course, fundraising from the private sector is also one or third angle there. The fourth angle is, of course, something that we are to come up. Is there something else? Thank you. Then Carlo. Based on my own experience in one of the most important things in fundraising is, why do we want it? As long as the central thing is to get more money, it's difficult to get money. We have to focus on why we exist and what is our duty, what is the problem we want to resolve, what do we want to build. By connecting to these important questions, by offering resolutions to the world, we usually find the funding as well. And another thing is that we have to, as a community, find our own strengths to connect to one another and external partners and be part of bigger entities, whether it's research or foundation funding, but we are able to, in cooperation with others, to have more effect, also with internal and external cooperation, and have significance. Did you notice that I didn't ask about fundraising, but you did answer to me about funding, but fundraising is different. I see that research funding and artistic research, being top artistic researchers, means that we are successful in external international funding application rounds. One important thing is to affect the funding instrument, to negotiate directly with the Commission officers, like with how these program papers are formulated. At the moment, for example, I manage one of these AMAS consortium in Europe, which won one of these four art, social, societal effect researching horizon projects. And there the biggest goal that we aim for is political act, having a political effect, both in an area, in Finnish level and European level as well. And in there, bringing forth as art forth something in those documents affects in many ways. So that we are able to even apply for the funding because it's marked that there is funding like this available. Of course, now in the fundraising part, any kind of conceptions, what kind of cooperation could we do with companies and what kind of new forms of joint act do we give opportunities for to get funding from them. I believe that Uniarts has that knowledge and skill, how we get that funding and how do we do this kind of competitive new openings in the field of research and new extra funding. Okay, next we talk about art. What is your understanding of art, Carla? Art is personally something that is refreshing, something that opens me, something that wakes me, something that makes me quiet, where I can feel that I can be a whole as a person, that I can find new ideas with. I'm not going to start with an artistic theoretical aspect like telling you what art is, but to me it means this. And it also means that it's an opportunity to express myself in ways to understand myself and to understand the world where I am in a way that is not possible in any other way. And in that sense, it's irreplaceable part of being a human, whether it's individual, whether it's society, and whether it's understanding of that. The art will give you irreplaceable opportunity to find new all again. Thank you. Then Satu, please tell us your understanding of art. This is a challenging question, this idea of art. I think your previous answer was an amazing answer. I see that art starts building up from the understanding of expression, speaking, listening, and interaction of all of that. To me, the ability to express my ideas, feelings, something that I cannot touch with art. It's just so important. Art will give you ways to express something that nothing else can express. It will give us more ways to be in this society and in connection with people, connection to people. It's an irreplaceable power. This, to me, somehow is especially important, that art will give us something that nothing else can give us or do. To me, it's important in art the interaction with artist and audience. What happens to the maker? What happens to those who experience it? Art can build a connection between these two, the experiencer and maker, a new kind of language, new kinds of phenomena, experiences, new feeling. this is especially important feature of art. In best case scenario, art is everywhere. Art, the speciality of art, it also works in research. It can create and produce some kind of information that no other instruments cannot produce. So art, in its sense, is the air we breathe, or it's the sand that is everywhere. Thank you. And then Paula, please. Yes, this is a very extensive question, and I'm sure I could talk about it from many different viewpoints. But you just said really nicely that it's something that it has a language. It's a field of knowledge, not in another language than the spoken language. It's another kind of articulation, basically of the same matter. To me, art perhaps means a way of being. It's related to deeply, especially to me because I'm an artist, it's related to mobility, moving. In that sense, to all creativity, brains as well, because with the capacity of brains is made or they exist for moving. And those same brain cells that move us also, they're the ones that we analyze with and we create conceptions with. So they're in direct connection to one another, and there is some very deep thing in there that, and all of us who make art do it, and it's related to practicing and skill and the expression that come from them, but it's quite deep. And I think that that is especially the great strength of Uniarts, the practice that we do here, artistic activity and practicing the skill. That is what skill becomes from, art becomes from. Thank you. Then to the audience questions. Sofia, please. Thank you, Maria and Heikki, so much. Yeah, let's jump on to the community questions. So it's been possible to send us the questions with an online form, and we've also received more questions during this event. And we hope for prompt, quick answers, max 2 minutes per answer. And let's go in the order that we start from left to right. And with the next question, we start from the center and we go to the right and then left. Yeah. Did you understand me? Yes. Yeah, and please ask me to repeat the questions if you didn't understand. So please ask me to repeat it just before you want to answer. So the next person to answer is Tuovinen. And the question is, what is your management philosophy like? What are the 3 things that are important to you in your way to manage? Well, I haven't actually defined a managing philosophy, but one important aspect is managing via example. So if the manager does in another way than what they say themselves, so it's extremely dangerous, and that in that case management doesn't work. That is one thing that has been my guideline. Then I think I want to say this anecdote. So when I started at the Theatre Academy as a rector in 2005, and I asked the previous rector for advice, like what would they say me? They said, people talk bad about one another. Don't believe half of that. One part is important that you have to trust people to start with. If you do not trust people, so nothing good comes of that. And if the manager always hears different kind of whispers, you have to stand your ground and not believe the wrong talk, or you have to be very straightforward in your managing. And what's important to me is that you have to be straightforward and clear. I would bring up perhaps the values here. So openness is extremely important. But one important thing in managing, of course, that is a philosophy to me, is having grounds to make decisions. When we make decisions, we aim to make some kind of regulations and some kind of guidelines that it means that in similar cases we always work in a similar way, so that you have a feeling that you've been treated equally. And equality and experiencing that as a manager is especially important to me. And openness is another important guideline, so that people are heard, that you can see people, you can hear them, you can listen what kind of challenges and ideas they've had. And these, of course, as a manager, I've had to, in many cases, make decisions that haven't been favorable to everybody, or I've had to allocate resources in such a way that everybody don't get the same way, or it depends on the results. And I have an experience that in very skillful, highly educated expert community, when we have good grounds, people quite often hear you out and they accept things when they know why we do it in this way. And when the guidelines are based on the reasons and grounds for making those decisions, it becomes equal, open community where you have trust. You know that, okay, this is how we do it here. Of course, there can always be some exceptions or other grounds, but it's important that the resolution, the result of your management is equality in community. I want to start with trust. That to me is the most important reason and ground for everything. It is what you build and earn in interaction, and it's based on you, that the community really feels that the many different voices that are in there are heard and understood. It comes from the decisions that we make are understandable and they meet what has been talked, and it comes from the experience of rightfulness and empathy as well, maybe in difficult moments, that you are a person as a manager and not lead based on a management protocol purely. Just that. And another important thing, that work has significance, that you help the community to find their own significance, the significance of work and the significance of the whole organization in this world. We need significance. We need a duty that will take us to the future, that can be in connection to the world. And thirdly, I'd like perhaps say that being creative in a moment, I want to bring that up because the world is changing, and many of the things that we have learned, how organizations work, we have to look at them from a new perspective. The world cannot be foreseen. We have to be flexible in a way and creative the whole time, more and more. So I trust the community. I trust its flexibility and ability to resolve things. Thank you. You stick to the time really well. Let's continue the same way. Miettinen will continue now. So the question is, which describes you more? Quickly started new things with a tight schedule, or functioning, executing new things with ground root, but with sustainability and slower pace. Hearing out the ground root level, of course, is grassroots level as a principle of developing things together. But I have to admit that a lot of results come about with in another category as well. So I think what is very natural to me is that I've been able to execute things and reach goals. But I believe that they're not contradictory or polarization, but more likely that when we get those results, it's only possible by the grassroots level being part of it. And they give us the ideas of what we ought to do, what are the challenges, what could we hold on to, how to go further. That's a really good question. In managing work, there are loads of paradox matters that on the other hand you have to be flexible and quick, and on the other hand you have to have very good reasons that you've made carefully. Perhaps in participation and starting from the grassroots level is what the management philosophy has, what I just described, that trust on the expertise that the community has. But on the other hand, we are to understand the participation aspect, to do it in a way that doesn't become a burden or a clumsiness. But we have to have the guts to grasp the moment, to do things that are good in time. So it's both, including both. You asked me what I'm more like. So what is always important to me is that with each result that I do, with each decision I do, has a vision, whether it's a shared thing or not. We can be quick. It calls for a shared understanding why we are doing it and an understanding that is possible in some way. Yeah, I have to be honest to say that the first alternative is what is very natural to me. I'm a quick person and I might have visions and say, okay, now we're going to do it. But I have learned in one course, for example, a management course, there was excellent assignment, a group assignment with 6 or 7 persons in the group, and we had to resolve to a task where we had to get out of a jungle together, and there were certain problems there, and we wouldn't have been able to get out unless we had heard all 7 persons and their special skills. So basically, in other words, it's extremely important that we have interaction going in both directions. So the grassroots level have to have visions that go forth, and the manager has to have visions. But also the grassroots level has many visions, and perhaps the challenge in management is also how do we get those from the grassroots level, and how do we participate people when you have a large amount of people. So how can we get the joint view there? So that is the challenge in managing. But as we mentioned already, these aren't contradictory. We have to take it into account when we manage. Thank you. Then the third question, so Hilden starts. How would you support Uniarts research activity and develop research education? Thank you. Perhaps I would approach this from many different directions. On the other hand, the everyday life. Research in our field is very young, and as a university, very young. Researchers have many practical challenges where you'd have to go on. Like in my opening speech, I said that the researcher's career should be more attractive than it is at the moment. And on the other hand, there are practical things related to that, but on the other hand, this is my next answer as well. At the same time, but what is related to that is that research is favorable, significant, and it's connected to network, where the researcher's career is not just restricted to your own university, but we are international, and we manage this as an organization in our own field. So we would have to do a lot of work for that. Thirdly, perhaps for my own research profile and research purpose, and better to word it in a way. I said it earlier that as a community we find ourselves and one another in a stronger way, and together we can word why research that we do is important, and why are we to support it and others to support it, and we understand the instruments of research funding, and that way get resources for research. Thank you. Tuovinen? Yeah. Maybe one thing is that the doctoral programs and clarifying them and their contents could be one thing, that the students would understand what kind of program the program in question is, so that we could actually take that further. And on the other hand, the profiling of research, so clarifying that even more. We, of course, have, always comes we. Uniarts has artistic research that's very important, and that's some kind of basic research type of research that functions as a basis for all applicable resource. And I have certain kinds of ideas on what could be interesting to bring forth in Uniarts research, and part of it of course could be a contradictory idea to the profilation, but I'll still say it, they're ideas. So, for example, if we talk about how art affects things, so in Finland we don't have at all like art economical affects research. So only just a single researcher might do it, but there are certain areas that might be interesting to get to do in cooperation with another university, so that we get the effectivity of art further and forth. In that way, get more funding to support the basic act of art, so that art could have an effect in society. So how art is reached, so the reachability of art could increase if we had strong art communities around Finland. I would see that doctoral candidates are to have clear career paths when they start to do the career. These research schools, the doctoral schools, should be tied to different projects, the research projects that universities do. This year I have 5 candidates graduating, and they have important new openings such as working life doctors that might connect their dissertation to something, for example, art organization, art institution, or do part of their studies in these institutions. What's very important is good supervision, clear curricular plans in the doctoral school, and what's critical at the moment is also that the doctoral schools ought to be developed at least together in other Nordic countries, if not even globally. So virtuality fits that really well, so that these studies are basically done with those institutions that are the best in each area. Regular visits and requirements to the doctoral candidates as well, so the studies are progress. But in the core of the doctoral school level is that the curricular plan and personal study plan is okay, funding is okay, and my experience is that the doctoral candidates who do not have a funding graduate the quickest, so the motivation is to be there. And also a strong art institution entrepreneurship connection. Thank you. Next up, 4 questions that are related to university and the cooperation and joint life of the 3 academies. First one is, how would you increase the Uniarts and its different academies' knowledgeability and visibility in the society? And Tuovinen, please. Well, basically Uniarts has a good situation because all these 3 academies are really well known in Finland, and the artists who graduate from us are well known, but there are also areas that are not that well known, because Theatre Academy mostly is well known for actors, and Sibelius Academy perhaps pianists or etc. But there is a lot of content that we ought to be able to show it, and how the effectivity of that content should be made visible. But I've also perhaps mentioned already that I say that the actual artists in society happens after the graduation in different duties, and that's what the training is to meet, and that's where the societal effect comes from. But of course the university and the rector has the responsibility the societal respect that the artists get their jobs, and the rector's position is to ensure that the students get those jobs, so have an artistic political effect as well. Now I almost want to ask you to repeat the question. So how would you as a rector increase the Uniarts and its students' knowledgeability and visibility in the society? Well, I think Uniarts has been very successful in communications. It has a very strong visual brand, and I would say that as a rector, my duty is to take it into more detailed level. The information, what each academy does, what kind of key results do they get. I see a very strong role with company and entrepreneurship cooperation. The amount of visitors come here, it's a lot. If I remember correctly, it's 80,000 people who come to different Uniarts events, and that was a huge number of visits. I think I read that somewhere. So you already do an amazing job in reaching the audience, but perhaps more like getting out there among the people, that it's possible to reach the peer groups in different events, campaigns, different cooperation modes. I'm sure that they will affect and are also a part of the supplementary funding application grounds. These are important when we do the research cooperation, but others get the impression of where are all of the fields where we can have cooperation, that you have a more better and exact understanding of what does the Uniarts include and what kind of opportunities does it have. The question includes one of our small challenges what comes to visibility and how well we are known, and that is how to ensure Uniarts and its academies. I would actually turn this around, that what is visible and is well known is the results of our basic activities. It's the result of the whole university community, depending on whether that's in open campus or in one of the academies. And through those results, we get true sustainable visibility. The communications has the thankful job to make it visible when we have already made the results what they are to be. So, and in our strategy, what we have set as goals are. And the second thing I want to say, that we want to be national and international, like internationally well known, and there are different arenas, and we have to have different methods there. On a national level, and being visible there, like for example, as a rector, what I can do is give one kind of answers to this, and in internationalization, what's essential there is to think about this based on all of our actions, like what does internationalization mean to us? What are our goals there? And then define it in relation to our goals. We have different kinds of educations and programs, and that's why this is very central, this question. And I would say that I could help people find the answers based on my own. I'm sorry, I'm coughing because of allergies. What about being present in aerial? So how, as a rector, we would benefit Uniarts in Seinäjoki, Kuopio and Järvenpää? Let's start with Miettinen in the center. Of course, Uniarts is also a university for the whole Finland. It is well known in all of Finland. So these programs in the area, for example, church music, I'm sure especially important for the area there. And I'm sure that I myself have studied in Kuopio, exactly. So it is a strength there in that area that people are proud of, that we have this here. So that the rector goes out there, or the different academies go out there, creates deep meaningful, the sense of meaningful and sense of value in those cities and towns. So despite the field of art that is represented there, so it creates the sense of working together and sense of community also there, for example in Kuopio or in Seinäjoki. And I see that this is also something that when the university has national duties, that that's the case there, that you can show that you go out there and you share the strategic and allocate the strategic resources, that it's positive that you can allocate them out there as well, that they strengthen the area there as well and further the development there. Which one is it? Hilden. Yeah, firstly, I think it's important that we expand our understanding of Finland and areas and what art means there. So art and culture are sometimes blamed for being capital centric, and I feel like our students and staff can learn a lot from the aerial aspect that Seinäjoki, Kuopio, and of course Järvenpää can give us. At the same time, it also gives us an opportunity to do different kind of cooperation, to have cooperation with the cities, to find another kind of role and platform, a laboratory in a way for what we do. In Seinäjoki University campus, we also have many universities present there in the campus, and it gives us an opportunity to have another kind of university cooperation. So I see that there is significance for it, not just aerial, and we have to perhaps try to find the ways how we can increase our students and staff significance in their work and in the aerial aspect, and learn ourselves from the aerial aspects and what it offers us. Yes, this is interesting and a difficult question actually. All these satellites have their own historical background, and Finland changes, and for example the young people are the amount of them is reduced, and latest research says that the population of Finland goes towards the coastal cities and cityscape, that people move in cities as well, and it's inevitable. And remote work and all of this, of course, means that the whole of Finland can be populated in a new way. But I would see these satellites as important if we find that their own profile within this university, or such profile that it supports the Uniarts profile. And if, for example, church music has had like these professions in northern Finland and eastern Finland, and that it has its exact prompt duty, it needs to have a function why it exists. So I think that aerial, like Uniarts satellites, are to be connected to the Uniarts strategy and vision and find the strengths there. For example, in Seinäjoki, what kind of cooperation we do with other universities in such way that it suits and fits the Uniarts strategy and vision. And on the other hand, it also benefits the area and people there. Thank you. Then we jump on to the fifth question. So Uniarts constitutes of 3 academies. How do you understand Uniarts and academies' relationship, and how would you like to develop that in the future? Hilden starts, please. I just referred to that we talk about Uniarts and the academies, and it sounds funny. We are all from the Uniarts. We are in different parts here that have their own important history, but the essential here is our duty as one university that we're all part of. Personally, I believe that, and also have already experienced that that when we were merging, like during the first few years, that there was certain kind of distrust between academies, like are they taking away our opportunities, etc. So I think we've come a long way from that, and there is an excellent potential and desire to do cooperation, and perhaps we just ought to create more places, structures, forums where this community can find one another, the academies can find one another, and create it in a way that doesn't increase the burden here, but what actually helps us find help and support from another colleague to a matter that you find important. So I would feel that from this viewpoint, that we don't no longer talk about the university level and academies and tensions between them or problematics in relation to that connection. I think we're ready to leave that behind and to do in a fair play, in good cooperation, and build a future for our university. Yes, we're going in this order. Yeah. Uniarts was grounded for there to be opportunities to create new art, and that calls for these art fields being more transparent, that there are meetings which will become a new interdisciplinary action, and there are many places there where the student can learn from the other field of art, and you can get content for your own study path from the other academy. And I am 100% sure that each academy has teachers who get loads of support from teachers from the other academy. For example, their methods, teaching methods. And I feel like these teaching meetings there should be more of them, because it calls for us having artistic discussion with our colleagues so that we understand the core content. What is this all about? And then we can learn from the other teachers' methods and also of the actual art as well. So I think that this is one thing that we should have more of. So these joint teacher meetings, because that's how the new education content comes about, where the open campus can work, for example. Now I look at myself this with fresh eyes, of course, and I see that definitely here the joint Uniarts gives amazing basis for interdisciplinary work. Perhaps what Paula just said, that how do we build career paths, study paths, where we can go to the other field, so we can cross over the limits and make brave openings. And what's very important here in Uniarts is openness and communality, that we are able to talk about the community. We are able to develop the community together, perhaps to make the jumps over each field of art possible in a concrete manner. I see that Uniarts students are a strength, a huge strength. So students in different academies who might like to encourage to have brave new openings together, who of course look into these all three academies as a new possibility, as a new place where to do something, a new place where to discuss something. So I think there are lots of opportunities here, and I'm sure it's something like 3 academies, joint universities, student staff, joint discussion, joint actions. The more joint actions you have on the practical level, the more natural it is to take them further. To me, somehow, these students are actually the special key people here to make the brave 3 academy openings. The strength there. Tack så mycket. Thank you so much. This is in Swedish, so how would you make the University of the Arts in a functioning language place? So Tuovinen is the first person to answer. Okay, can I answer this in Finnish, because my Swedish vocabulary is quite restricted. So at this point I have to actually speak Finnish, because my Swedish level skills is that passive. so that I cannot be a very professional about this. But Uniarts already now has 3 languages, and language policy has been prepared by Carlo. And this is also a difficult question because it's very important that we have strong domestic languages, but on the other hand, art and science and research is very international. And that general language there is English, so Uniarts has 3 languages. But the goal is, of course, that whether your mother tongue is Sami or what not, so that you have the opportunity and that everybody is respected, that all languages are respected, and that we aim to create that the students, for example, get communication in such way that they can all understand. We understand that everybody cannot understand each language, and in that way it's important that at least we communicate in 3 languages. But I wouldn't actually be completely ready at the moment to swap Uniarts in English completely, which of course means that in Aalto the working language is English. So at the moment I wouldn't say that Uniarts is at that place. All languages are to be respected. Miettinen in Swedish. I feel that everybody can take part in joint development projects and create better access for everybody. So my Swedish is not that strong, but I have trained and practiced. I feel like this joint, now in Finnish, so this joint study place, this joint university space is developed based on everybody having the opportunity to develop it, and we remove obstacles, that it's possible to get your own voice to be heard and take part in developing your environment. Hilden in Swedish. Swedish is one of the official language here, and we have the responsibility in the cultural field that also calls for the Swedish part of the nation. And one part of that is important is that we define this role and find the need that is out there in the field, that we find the national need that is also mentioned in the strategy, that we find the need in the Swedish Finland. We need to have the Nordic diversity, and that helps that our other domestic language helps us to operate in the Nordic countries. And I also feel that both national languages has a likening state that means that English has a more domestic or more like powerful status in the field, and we should be able to support those students who want to study in Swedish, that they get enough support for that and get to use both national languages, domestic languages, in such way that it works here. And I mentioned that already before. And the language policy would help that, what we are able to get as soon as possible. And we would work in a sensible way. Thank you. Let's get back to talking in Finnish language. How do you see the rector's responsibility in discussing the ecological crisis in Uniarts, and how do you see art's responsibility in ecological crisis in society? Now, I actually don't know who's going to answer. Perhaps it's Miettinen. Ecological questions, of course, are very, very close to my heart because of my own background. So I see that Uniarts and arts has a very significant role in this, because art can articulate values and feelings that can describe the human and nature relationship. If we think about this in a way that we talk about at the moment, also about not just human-specific but also nature-specific questions, like that we have the nature in the core of our thinking and humans are there in the outer circle. And I see that as a rector, it's possible to further that Uniarts activities take the ecological values into account. Of course, these simple things that we already do, already use, are sense that many organizations have different kind of green programs, green office programs where they emphasize in recyclability, etc. But I see that we can also go deeper. We have an opportunity to think about it. The joint idea is to start from thinking about what is the human's role in the ecosystem. In what way can art make it more visible in a concrete way to perhaps give it new openings for discussions and to illustrate it, to give it more significances and deepen the relationship. I have a feeling that we can answer it this way, that they're visible in our everyday life, recycling, how we do, principles in how we take care of the buildings and facilities that we have. But I also see that there is the other, more deeper level that with art will give more importance and significance for us to understand ecology and relationship with nature. I'm sorry, now it goes really fast because this is important. Arto O. Salonen writes about planetary civilization as capita, and one solution to how world meets the changes that we are inevitably facing. We try to find significance from other places than just growth and materia, and art, of course, has a significant role in this. On the other hand, we are in a situation where we all know that we cannot continue the way we did before, but nobody knows how we should continue, so that we can ensure our good life in the future as well, not just for us, but for all living things. And we need to imagine and have to have the potential to imagine and to try to redefine ourselves, refine ourselves, that only art can do. Art can motivate us in that process to find that changing force within ourselves that we need in a situation where we are now in. And of course, Uniarts are to find themselves as the central acting figure in this place. Of course, we have the responsibility to our students and to society that we are part of the result, and we help art to find a place in this changing situation. Yeah, the rector can have an effect in ecological crisis and facing it, for example, in a way that they encourage to develop such programs where have ecological aspects in the core of it. And I trust that especially our students feel this thing very important. But what's really important there is that art and science have dialogue, because there needs to be reasons, like factual reasons and information when we start to make a piece, whether it's a written piece or a performance. So it cannot be based on gut feeling. So that's why the students have to have deep interest in it, so that the scientific background is also sufficiently strong that you found out about it, that you can have an opinion about the topic. But what is mentioned in the strategy is that ecology is to be integrated in everything we do at the Uniarts. So it's been made simple there. So basically on all levels, the rector can give an example on how to lead in this field and topic. And of course, professors and lectors can include this in their own contents, and students as well. And one really important thing here that we ought to think about is that what kind of idea of art do we offer? Is it a spectator? Or like what is the content of the art in the end that we got? Like what is the quality there? It's a question of that the professors are to answer then, with the students to think about. Thank you. Then we have 3 questions about the structural equality. And First, in English, this question: is there, in your opinion, structural racism and discrimination in universities? What kind of policies should be taken to ensure equality and diversity? Yes. Well, this is also a very, very difficult question. I think that certainly there is, so nobody can be blind with this question. So Finnish universities are quite national, actually. I think University of the Arts is quite international compared to some universities, but certainly there is structural racism because how we behave is actually in our bodies, so we don't realize those subconscious structures that we have. So we should be, for example, quite aware of how and where we, how to get new students, where do we advertise, and how we try to get those new students to the University of the Arts. And of course, in all kinds of administration, we should be aware of that. Really, we have to talk about it and make all kinds of steering to ensure that the situation will be better. It's my turn. Oh, so I definitely agree that there is structural discrimination existing in various aspects. When you think about gender policy, for example, we have issues in the Finnish university system. We still have discrimination in amounts of gender of professors, for example. So it's not, we cannot close eyes of that. But I think that there is a good chance to develop open and diverse environment when we acknowledge this with different policies. Also, recruiting policies can be open. There's a very great example, for example, OCAD in Canada. They have recruited principals where they recruit until they find, for example, a suitable indigenous professor. So it's not only phrase that says, okay, we give a priority to female or indigenous or something, but they have long enough recruit period that they can find someone who represents black origin or indigenous origin. I think that's a marvelous example of one of the universities who have succeeded in a policy that is diverse and promotes diversity. Some of the structural issues are also political, and I think there the rector can have a very big role when influencing national policy making to make it so that, for example, basic art education is accessible to all people with different backgrounds. If you don't access these skills from young age, it might exclude you right from the beginning from the possibilities to study with us. So I think it is important to influence and create policies within your institution, but also it's very important to influence policy making in national, even European, global level. These days, we are all too aware of racism and discrimination and all other challenges that face many of the societies or all of the societies to some extent. And what is true in the society is also true in the university. We are no way separate from the society or the world. So we have to acknowledge these things and be more and more aware of them and adjust our ways, our policies as this policy brings us more awareness to what the actual problems are. There are great examples in universities where these things have been dealt with very well, Berkeley University being one of them, for example. And I think there's a lot to learn from there. And also, I think we have a lot to learn from our community. We have a very interesting community with people coming from very different backgrounds. And I think listening to the voices and the different perspectives, giving them an equal place in the university and a possibility to create a better community for all, we can learn a lot and become much better in what we are doing. Thanks a lot. How do you create a secure atmosphere if the students and the staff can feel really well there and flourish there in a safer way? Miettinen. I think openness and communality principles are very important here. What's important is also that there are basic practices that call for all universities, that each students and staff are aware of them, that there are accessibility contact person for abuse and harassment. So you have to have the basic practicalities ready. So if someone doesn't feel safe here, they get the understanding and idea of what to do in that situation. Same with staff members, so that these are also somehow self-explanatory things, but also things that we don't always pay enough attention to. That if we are to ask any student here, like, do you know what to do if you feel unsafe, etc. So it could be that not all of the information has not has been received by everybody. So communications is very important here, that everybody know how to act and what to do when there's something that is to be stopped. It's also related to the previous question as well, that that you are a diverse, open community where people with different backgrounds and who represent different kind of thinking, that they can express their opinions in peace and be accepted as they are. I think this is very much related to the strategic goal and aim to develop the community in such a way that there's no discrimination, that it's possible to feel safe there as you are. And if there are situations where there is some kind of discrimination or insecurities, that there is a process and help that will change this thing for you. The key thing here is that the community member, no matter what their status is, that they can feel that they are heard, that there's trust, that things are discussed in a matter that is fair and leads to something. And perhaps especially I'd like to bring forth at this point the fact that what has come up now with the corona crisis, that we are to be especially very good in creating such routes that your concerns can be heard in a way that gives security, that you can ask your difficult questions as well. So lowering the threshold in a way that the things that possibly weaken your well-being and make you question, that you can truly ask them and you are allowed to bring it forth and you're encouraged to do it and you trust the people who deal with them. That's all very important. And also straightforwardness in your action, what I mentioned beforehand as well, is important. I feel that now as a university we have had a lot of discussion like this, and we have a very strong desire to have well-being in community as a university in many different ways. Also ethicality in everything we do. And in that sense, this is a really good community where to create this kind of well-being. We're not there just yet in all parts. There's still loads to be done, but the desire is there and the will is strong. Yes, I start with the quality system. So through that system, you are to be able to ensure that the whole community is treated with justice, that there are these contact persons for a harassment, that in the organizations you've secured the ways how to do it. You know who to contact, you know who takes care of it, how this thing is taken forth. So it's a pragmatic thing. But another thing is, of course, that our teachers, Uniart teachers, pedagogical expertise is to be increased, or the teachers' basic pedagogical studies are dealt with a lot. And that's the key thing here as well, that teachers take their own teacher aspects, like how do I teach, and inevitably you will see the ethical questions there and how the safe teaching and safe learning can be ensured there. And of course the ethical instructions are important to have in education and in artistic activity and in research side as well. So I'm sure we need those. Thank you. Then, as an additional question, so 3 ways how you would ensure that inappropriate behavior that has been in headlines now is reduced from the university and removed. Which one starts? Is it me? You can. This is a practice round now. You can practice. Who wants to start? Well, I'll start then. 3 ways. Especially what's very important is communications, of like stopping it. If there is inappropriate behavior, we all know how to do and what to do. So that's a big aspect there, so communications. One is, of course, the ethics in art. The Ministry of Education is at the moment making this research into artistic ethical instructions, and they proposed 3 different models here. They've proposed that there could possibly be a similar like denk. Then they've proposed a person-related model and a committee model. And this is still underway, like what would be the best way to have it. So basically there is some address where you can take your case to, if you have inappropriate harassment cases. They could be, it's so diverse, the amount of cases. And so tolerant atmosphere is the 3rd part, the kind of atmosphere that we are to develop, that everybody will take part of, that where you emphasize safe being and tolerance. Tolerance is something that is everybody's matter. So basically we know what is the process if something went wrong, that you are to deal with it. There is someone who knows, who you know that who will take care of it, and then in general that there is safe and tolerant atmosphere and increasing that. Thank you, Hilden. One thing, of course, is ethical principles and stating them and communicating them out loud. So ethical principles are being prepared, and that's why I would bring forth that we are to find the wording for these practical situations where these principles change and become active. What in our own fields are those typical situations where these principles might be questioned by someone, to try and recognize those situations beforehand where we ought to stop. Oh wait, have I noticed this and that? Have I taken it into account? Because they're not necessarily, well, we don't necessarily have the ready-made ways to meet these challenging situations. We need to recognize, how do I behave when in a situation like this? How am I a responsible member of the community? A second thing is that we have very small areas, all of us, the small circles, and it's very easily you have a concern, like, can I bring this or that forth, because then I will be marked somehow. And we ought to resource this in that way and opportunities in that way, that there's person that have an opportunity that who will listen to you, who'll talk to you, who'll collect the information, who will not be marked but in that small circle and is trustworthy and who has the ability to deal with that matter in a trustworthy way and really well. And based on that, in a community, the processing of how we do ethically in a sustainable way, how will our values become reality in different ways, different situations. Yes, this is related to operational culture, and quick 3 parts are very difficult to name. But silence, the culture of silence that has allowed inappropriate behavior or bad behavior in an organization, that should be removed somehow. And one way is that the others who see it and who observe it are quiet. So how do we get that kind of operational culture that already when the individual, for example, that there has been inappropriate behavior towards, that they don't perhaps notice it, but someone close to them notices it. So how can we, in a correct way, bring it forth without this being a crazy situation where we talk about that we start like giving like wrong announcements and where we get a terrible cultural way, so we start like telltaling. So it's very challenging, but silence is something that enables bad behavior, so we should immediately stop it in a correct way. And then, of course, what's very important is that students know who to contact, who's the contact person in harassment cases, because quite often you're very alone. Thank you. I'm sure we'll continue with this in the autumn. Last question. I would like to ask that in 1 minute you would answer me to a question that what does university democracy mean to you and how would you further it? Hilden, I think, was... University democracy means to me that the members of the community have a way to affect their work and the community despite the language they speak or the group they represent. So the democracy is visible in the structure that enable for you to be heard and for you to participate in the development of the university and have an effect in bringing forth your matter. University democracy is also related to management philosophy, where university has a community where the limits go outside the university as well. We represent our own fields, we bring forth our own view in the university. We can affect it through extensive experience. Democracy is sharing the power, and I see that it's important that everybody has an opportunity to be part of that in developing joint goals. And I would say that in that way as well, that participation is made possible, that it's not just possible there, that it also means that we give many different type of groups, also even special groups. Like each group will have an opportunity to develop things together. Services to be made accessible and participation to be made accessible. Of course, on the other hand, the university community has hierarchy. We say that we are a democratic community, on the other hand, but the university community has decision-making power. There are hierarchies there. So democracy is also the fact that there are those guidelines, transparency, good administration grounds, good decision-making grounds for those decisions, and a process where you have had the opportunity to be heard and to affect the joint matters, to be presented, for the students to be presented in the decision-making, different groups to be participated, structures that are fixed bring the democracy? Well, essential is the juridistic units that university has, but that's not worth anything if the everyday life is not based on democratic acts. I find it very important that there to be a fun and nice atmosphere. So the operational culture is what enables democratic decision making. And then there's certain practical things. For example, how do we communicate of processes that are not ready yet? How is that visible? How is it easy for you to realize that now you can still have an effect on this? When someone knows that I want to affect on this, that you know that now is the place, so that the decisions are not made in secret, that you don't actually know that something is being prepared. Thank you. And then is the last question that Heikki Lehtonen is asking. And I suggest that the top candidates will all stand when they answer. Thank you. And before I ask the questions, I cannot say about the democracy this matter that is quite essential here, that in accordance to the old Universities Act, that in 2020 the rector had a huge amount more power, and so that we've made a conscious decision that the rector gets all of that power. So how the rector uses that power is central. So they understand that although they have the power to decide on many things or many of the important things, so that they know how to use the power in such a way that the university democracy is taken into account in decision making. And that's the central thing we assess for you in you as well. But the last question here now. So what will the University of the Arts get if you are selected as the new rector? We start with Paula. Yeah, well, University of the Arts will get a brave, person who is ability to make decisions, and a funny rector who also understands deeply the artist work and does it herself in managing as well. I feel that my creativity and my artist persona is visible in my management way. At least that is my aim. And you would also get a person who wants to renew things, a rector who respects all traditions as well. Satu, please. In me, you would get a rector who I'm sure in her active has democracy, equal and transparent. But I'm also very goal-oriented, and I feel that one of my biggest strength is resource acquirement for the University of the Arts, and securing that we are successful in getting those resources, in securing them, and in competitive results as well, that I'm sure all universities need at the moment. In me, you would get a rector who is trustworthy, who can be foreseen, who is straightforward. Also, in my understanding, quite clear in my speech. The community understands what I call for, what I mean. I am a leader who is strongly value-based, who's also good in creating preconditions for the university, not just resources, but also opportunities, and also an excited and committed rector. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, so much who were here. Now we've sat here for 2 hours, and thank you so much to all of you who followed this on video. We had almost 350 people watching this stream, and you can also watch it afterwards as well. It has been recorded. Thank you, our top applicants. I think we could give a round of applause for them to answer questions for 2 hours. I'm sure we will find an amazing rector for us. And Heikki will now say his thank you. Thank you on my behalf as well, and for the board's behalf as well to everybody who are here and who followed the stream. And thank you, the candidates especially. This has been an important part of the process. And we are now in the final length of this. So next Tuesday, next week, the board will meet. And as we said, we will aim to make the decision. And I want to repeat my own request that I'm hoping that we will, through our discussion, we will decide on the rector without having to vote. So for the rector for the next 5-year term. So thank you so much on my behalf one more time. Thank you. Let's hope it's sunny out there now.